Here's a very simple recipe for Maul Shadow Lord. Take the Clone Wars, throw it in the pot. Toss in a decent helping of Andor. Season with neo-noir crime thriller vibes. Sprinkle with some pulp. You've got Maul Shadow Lord. The first 2 episodes from Lucasfilm Animation's new Clone Wars spinoff, or Rebels prequel, or Solo prequel, or Bad Batch Companion, are out on Disney Plus now. And as the title says, it's close to peak, and I hope it only gets better. So for this video, I'm going to do a spoiler-free review section, and then a section where I speak more freely with a synopsis and some more in-depth thoughts. If you don't want spoilers, you can just go to the end, I guess. As I said before, Shadow Lord is a neo-noir cross between Clone Wars and Andor. It takes itself pretty seriously and seems committed to being a genre piece. Much like Andor is basically a political spy thriller in space, Shadow Lord is a crime thriller in space, except the leader of the criminal syndicate is a rogue demon warlock. It takes place, I believe, in 18 BBY, so a year after Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars finale. Last we saw Maul, he was wreaking havoc on Rex's troops and dooming them to a fiery death crash before jetting out into the unknown. We find him in a sort of transitional period here. His criminal network, the Shadow Collective, has fallen apart. He wants revenge, he wants a legacy, and he wants to topple Darth Sidious. The animation is gorgeous, it's smooth, the action is fun and dynamic. As far as violence goes, it's a good balance between Clone Wars level brutality and the kind of Rebels-esque restraint that I imagine is imposed by Disney. This is just more proof that it was such a good thing to bring back the Clone Wars team to work on Season 7 and then keep doing Clone Wars style stuff. It's so good and it's only getting better. The show does exposition in a really solid way. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue and slow revelation of character details. It feels confident and professional and smooth. The new characters are fun and memorable, and they're a good mix of creative personality and the tropes you'd expect from this genre. But what you really care about is Maul, right? How's Maul doing? Well, without spoilers, I think he's being done so well, as you'd expect, if you know anything about his voice actor and a major creative behind this show, Sam Witwer. Maul is menacing, and he's smart, and he's mysterious, and he's an active presence with a lot going on. Right off the bat, I think they're proving once again that it was worth bringing him back to life in the first place. Witwer said a few times in different places that they really do have something to say with Maul here, and that's why they're telling the story. And this is what I've been saying if you've seen my other videos about the big franchises. These stories need to have something specific and meaningful to say. It doesn't have to be crazy deep, but it needs to be worthwhile. I like the snippets we're getting here about Maul's sense of gray morality and his dynamic with the new Jedi character. I also like the place that your average galactic citizens are in, between the rock and hard place of no Jedi and the looming Empire. We know how Maul's going to end up in Rebels, but how did he get there? Solo introduced a new wrinkle into the timeline, which opens up a very exciting door, and it was really disappointing when nothing came out of that. But now I think we're getting at least some setup, and maybe we'll actually get the payoff. Maul has long been my personal favorite Star Wars villain since Clone Wars, and as of these 2 episodes, there are 8 more to go, so who knows, but I'm loving it even more. Okay, spoilers. You've been warned. Synopsis. Episode 1, The Dark Revenge. These titles are both really, really pulpy, which I gotta love. And Episode 2, Sinister Schemes, introduce us to 4 intersecting factions. Firstly, the criminal syndicates of the city world Janix, run by bosses like Nico Demus and Ludi Vario, which are classic George Lucas sounding names. That's great. The embattled local law enforcement, of whom we're following Brander Lawson and his droid partner, Two Boots. They're police detectives. The destitute Jedi Master and Padawan duo, whose names we don't actually hear in these episodes, and for good reason. And of course, the Shadow Collective, or what's left of it. Maul's loyalists. The show does a great job of setting us in media res, in the middle of things. We're being launched into a fast-paced but mysterious world of criminal interests and buried secrets in the painful wake of the Clone War. The Empire looms, yet unseen but powerful, even in absentia. There's a great sense that every character has a history, has things going on, even the characters we know already, and we're just getting up to speed with them. The world, not just of Star Wars in general, but of this particular show, feels lived in already. It has things to reveal to us, and it'll reveal them, I think, in the right time. I love that we're catching Maul as he seems to be rising out of a slump. The Shadow Collective has fallen apart. Maul is only running a diminished composite force of Mandalorian commandos and Night Brothers, the Zabrak counterparts to the Night Sisters on Dathomir. But there's clearly stuff that's happened off screen. The cartels of Janix are all brand new characters, but they do a good job of really giving us the sense of their, first off, personal histories, and their histories with Maul. Maul is a shadow that haunts the underworld. If you remember back to season 5 of the Clone Wars, where he forcibly took control of the galaxy's criminals in a series of these blitzkrieg raids with the Death Watch, the situation of this show is going to make sense to you. The galaxy's cartels don't really like the fact that this random wizard showed up and overturned everything. Maul will have to deal with that as he goes. The show's characterization of Maul is really rooted in something that Sam Witwer has spoken about before. Maul was created to be Palpatine's perfect weapon. In Phantom Menace, we see him as this great warrior and ruthless assassin, but he was as cunning as Dooku and as imposing as Vader. He was meant to be able to play politics and do his own dirty work at the same time. But history has moved past him. He's a soldier without a captain. But what else does he have to do? So he's going to carve out his own place in the galaxy if it's the last thing he does, which we kind of know it is. And we see all aspects of his character at work in just these first 2 episodes, with a lot of showing and not telling. He's still in top fighting shape, as we see in the action sequences. He's very much attuned to the dark side still, and bent on following where he thinks the Force is leading him. He's still doing a lot of the doomer philosophy that he was doing in season 7. We see that in his dialogue with the Jedi, which kind of mirrors the things that he was saying to Ahsoka. He's ruthlessly cunning, but also pragmatic, as we see in his schemes to engineer conflict between the gangs, but also his tactical sparing of people who might be useful to him. He's firing on all cylinders, and it's awesome. As I said, Maul is probably my favorite Star Wars villain, and this cements that. Another guiding idea about Maul that comes out of Clone Wars is that he's Sisyphus. He's rolling an impossible boulder up an impossible hill, and he will die trying. That's the tragedy of a man so wrapped up in the dark side. The side characters are all great as well. Brander Lawson is a guy with problems and a history, an overworked family man that's finding out very quickly that he's in way over his head. We only get hints at his background, which I like. They're gonna pace out what we learned of him, I think. He's voiced by Wagner Moura, who you might remember as Death from Puss in Boots 2. His partner, Two Boots, is pretty cool as well so far. They're not overdoing it with what I assumed was going to be kind of an annoying sidekick, and I suspect we'll get something emotional out of him later on. I have this feeling that he's going to be... something's going to happen with this guy. I like Vario, the criminal boss of one of the gangs. He's plot relevant, but also comedic relief, and his humor isn't annoying. I think it's actually just a really nice counterpoint to the very grim tone. I realize I keep using the words like mystery and restraint and not overdoing it, but they're doing that really well. And we see that once again with the Jedi. I guess it's a good sign that in the first 2 episodes, they haven't played all their cards. There's still mystery. This Jedi has an air of intrigue and mastery about him, and I want to see what happens to him. Now we get to the prisoner, the kid, the Padawan, whatever. Her name has already been put out through all the marketing, but I'm not going to use it because I really like what the show is doing by not giving us her name and her continual refusals to reveal herself. It's creating some interesting ideas about identity around her. Like, how do you define yourself if your entire identity and civilization has gone up in smoke? And regarding both Jedi, I'm really glad we're getting the sense, even if it's just in small ways so far, of how difficult it was for Jedi survivors. I want to get more of this idea of the persecution that the Jedi and Jedi sympathizers got in the early years of the Empire, and this show is the perfect tone to explain that. So all in all, the dark revenge and sinister schemes were both excellent, and they lay the groundwork for success. I only have one real issue with the show right now, and it has nothing to do with plot or characters or anything. It's just the name. Honestly, I want to ditch the superhero naming convention where it's just character name, subtitle. Like, if this was just Star Wars Shadow Lord, I think that would be perfect. I get for marketing, branding reasons, we gotta throw the Maul in there. I don't know why. None of the Disney Plus shows, even Andor, especially Andor, actually, did not need to be called that. It could have had a cooler, different name. So, but what are you gonna do? But anyways, what do you think? Am I being overly optimistic, or are we getting some non-Andor peak in Star Wars finally? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll be back next week with another review, as well as a video about the new Lord of the Rings movies that were recently announced, somewhere in between. Thanks for watching, and God bless.